Welcome to the Lifestyles Unlimited Real Estate Investor Radio Show, a real estate investment program. Listen and learn how to use real estate to build wealth and passive income streams for you and your family. We bring you experts every day to discuss and answer your questions on everything from single-family homes all the way up to 600-plus unit apartment complexes. And now, the Lifestyles Unlimited Real Estate Investor Radio Show.
Good morning and welcome to the show. This is Andy Webb with Lifestyles Unlimited. And as always, we're working on your financial freedom. And today's show is dedicated, I'm dedicating today's show to the Type A, the Type A personalities out there. And that's not me. I'll tell you that. I'm going to tip my hand already. But for you Type A's, you're the people that you're built to go fast. Make a quick decision. Get it done. And that's important. That's important in today's market. We're gonna talk about that, and more importantly, for you Type B's like me, how do you get around that? How do you make sure you're able to get that deal, to get to the closing table? Because that Type A guy, he's out there chomping at the bit. So watch out. Just as a quick aside, as I work on these shows for you, I always prepare some show notes, kind of little guideline for me, and I usually save those and give the file a title that'll make some sense to me later. And for today's show, I called that "Speed is the Key." Speed is the key, and it probably a bit of an obscure reference. If you're like me, you're mid-40s, you're Gen X, you grew up in the 80s, you might remember a band that gained some popularity towards the end of the 80s called the Sugar Cubes. Who's that? Well, it was a group out of Iceland. Very quirky music, quirky lyrics. You might even remember one of the female vocalists, Bjork. She went on to do her own thing, gained some acclaim, but they had a song of that same title, Speed is the Key. And the last stanza, or whatever you call it in music, it goes whoosh. There goes another second. Doubt kills. Speed is the key. And that's a theme for today. Speed is the key, because thinking again about today's real estate market, whether you're a buyer looking for your personal house, tight market, or an investor looking for an investment property, investment house, or apartments. Or maybe you're a renter listening right now, looking for that next lease house that you want to move into for a number of years. Well, I'll tell you what, any of you have to be prepared to move fast. It is just simply put, it's a hot, hot market out there. So how do you prepare? How do you be prepared to move fast? Again, thinking about the Type B's, we've got to circumvent some of those internal brakes that you have. We're going to get into that. Or maybe we should ask the question, should I take action right now at all? Prices seem kind of high. Yeah, interest rates are low. Maybe I should just wait. We'll get into that as well. I think it's a valid question, and we'll address that. And I've saved just a little bit of time for the end of the show. We'll see how much content I can get to then to continue our conversation we began last week about protesting those property taxes. Depending on which appraisal district your properties are in, speed may very well be key for you as well as that window gets shorter. We'll talk about that, so stay tuned. And if you have any questions today, the number here in the studio, it is 855-497-4335, or send me an email to askandy@luinc.com. So getting back to the Type A's out there. What is your characteristic? You're ready. Yeah, I'm going to do this thing. You have that sense of urgency. In fact, you always go fast. I mean, you're made for this environment. Again, it's the Type B's out there that I'm more worried about. Again, I'm one of you. We've learned how to work past that. But what do we do as Type B's? We tend to pause. We tend to deliberate. We tend to analyze and then analyze again. Fine-tune those numbers, overanalyze. And guess what? What happens? That smoking deal we were looking at, it's gone. Going back to the 80s, growing up, anytime I was overthinking some decision, or maybe later on in the college years, or even after that, I can remember my mom always used to say to me, she had this phrase, he who hesitates is lost. And it's a common phrase in our country. He who hesitates is lost. And essentially what she was telling me was that my overthinking and the resultant inaction could lead to missed opportunity or worse. So we're talking about the potential to miss opportunity for you Type B folks out there by overthinking. In this market, he who hesitates is lost. So in today's market, if you are a buyer or a renter, you have to be prepared to go fast. I want to address the renter first. Let's talk about the renter first. Why? Well, for you, the rental owner, so that you can understand where you stand in this market. And as well, why? Well, it's that time of year. I mentioned this on last week's show. It's lease renewal season. We had one family come back and say, you know what? We've taken jobs across town. The commute is killing us already. We've got to find a place over on the other side of the airport. I said, hey, not a problem. I understand that. So just Friday night, 8 p.m., a little after 8 p.m., I put a house on the market for lease myself, and I have just been floored. I was a bit concerned to see how the disconnection of Zillow from MLS listings. So when a realtor places a listing for you, a lease listing on the MLS, they have the option to let that syndicate, and they should do that. Let that syndicate to sundry platforms out there. One of those platforms was at one point Zillow. Well, Zillow has said, you know what, we're pulling our power from the market. I was curious to see, hey, how's this going to work out? Not an issue. Not an issue at all. We're getting a ton of leads from other realtors, 12 showings, none of mine, 12 showings scheduled already in the first 12 hours by other realtors. So very hands off for me. I'm not having to get out there. I'm not having to show the property because they're taking care of that for me. And then a lot of leads from other platforms. Realtor.com comes up. I've seen a lot from something called Homes.com. Zumper. Speaking of obscure reference, not familiar with that one, but it's sending me a lot of leads. Apartments.com. So if you're not working with a leasing agent, look at some of those other platforms that are out there. As you may know, Zillow has started charging investors to list their properties for lease. And it's interesting, when I went to the MLS to look at my subdivision, actually at my zip code for this particular property, there was one other house on the market. One other house. So there is a shortage. There's a shortage of stuff to buy for your personal residence. There's a shortage of stuff to buy for the investors. Now, we're finding those off-market deals, fortunately. And for the renters out there, it's tough. It's tough. And we're going to finish out that conversation for you when we come back. And for you, the landlord that's getting ready to put your house up for a lease, stay tuned. I've got some important information for you as well.
Welcome back to the Lifestyles Unlimited Real Estate Investor Radio Show. Now, let's get back to your map to financial freedom.
Welcome back to the show. I'm your host, Andy Webb, and as the Sugar Cubes put it, speed is the key. Doubt kills. He who hesitates is lost. I heard that phrase ad infinitum, ad nauseum from my mother growing up, and that those apply right now to us. However you're involved in real estate, if you're a buyer trying to take down your personal house, you have to go fast. You hear about how many offers over listing, 50, 80, 100 offers on a house in our market right now. It's madness. And then for the investors out there, you too need to be prepared to go fast to take down that investment property, to take down that apartment complex. Obviously doing your due diligence, but not overdoing it to the tune of the type B personality. And if you're a renter, if you're looking to rent a property, especially houses, there is a lack of inventory out there, and that's what we're addressing today is having the ability to move quickly to be able to take down these deals. Like my mom said, he who hesitates is lost. If you spend too much time deliberating, you're going to get that thing just pulled right out from under you. Might miss a wonderful opportunity, in fact. Now, if you've got any questions for me today on this topic or anything else related to real estate, the number here is 855-497-4335, or feel free to drop me an email. That email address is askandy@luinc.com. And I was speaking to the renter community first and foremost because this is what I see. I just put a house on the market late in the evening on Friday and just was getting hammered yesterday. Phone calls, texts, emails, a lot of showings by way of other realtors. Only 2 houses on the market in this zip code, and mine's one of them. So it's no surprise. People are wanting to move there. Great rent, right? Best product, best price. Got some great pictures, got those out there. Listed it for just under $1,400. Great rent for that market, and we're seeing the reaction there. Now, you, as the renter, what do you need to do to be prepared? Listen, Have your documentation together now. I can't tell you when I get an application and it's incomplete, that slows down the process. When speed is the key and I've got 20 other applications coming in, guess what? I'm moving on to the next one, So you need to be buttoned up. What do most rental owners want to see out there? Rental owners, listen to this. This is for you as well. Well, in terms of documentation, you're going to put on the application your income. Well, I need supporting evidence of that. Typically, that's going to be 30 days worth of pay stubs. Maybe longer. It depends on the rental owner you're working with. If you're that's if you're employed. If you're self-employed, tax returns. Again, supporting that income you're telling me that you're making, and maybe several months worth of bank statements showing that income coming in the door. I need to be able to justify that. Picture IDs. Are you who you say you are? There's the occasional fraud out there. So yes, I need to see a picture ID, front and back ideally. And have all of the contact information ready to go for your current and your past residents, if you're renting now, your landlord, and employers. Normally 2 years, by the way, on 2 years worth of rental history is what a lot of rental owners want to see at a minimum. If there's no rental history there, maybe you just get out of your parents' nest, out of college, been in the dorm, something like that. Be prepared to pay a little bit extra in security deposit. If there are blemishes that it's not necessarily a blemish, but if there are issues on the application, lack of some history to prove what you're telling me, then yes, we may take up that security deposit. So rental owners, that's certainly an option for you. If that house is listed for $1,400 and your security deposit is $1,450 and there's some issues on there, otherwise they look pretty good, have a really strong income, well, double the deposit. Take it up in some capacity. And here I'm speaking to Texas. We have that freedom. There are listeners perhaps out of state where the security deposit is very heavily regulated in most states and how you can handle that. Some states will not let you do that. So be very much aware of your local regulation. Speak with your real estate attorney if you need to. And last point for the renters out there, fill out that application completely. I think I said that already. Gaps in that application can delay the process. And for you, the rental owner, if you get that application back and there are notable gaps, that should get you asking why. Why is that there? For example, on the application form I use, there's a series of, I think it's about 10 or 12 yes, no check boxes. Ever been evicted? Yes, no. You check one of the boxes. If they've checked all but one, well, why did they skip that one? They're sending you a message. They don't want to be dishonest and check, yes, I have been evicted, or yes, I have credit problems. So you should immediately follow up on that particular one. Don't gloss over that. And that takes me to you, the rental owner. You're leasing that property. Speed is the key for those applicants out there, but for you, do not rush. Take your time. Don't rush through the process. Maybe your house sat out there for a little bit. Maybe you overpriced it. You finally got wise, took the listed rent amount down. Now you're getting hammered with applications. It's been vacant for a little bit. You want to get somebody in there. Take your time. And in the spring market, you should have zero issues as it is. And once you get those applications in, of course, don't dawdle. People are waiting. Like I said, I mean, just the volume of inquiries that we've gotten, the applications that are starting to come in, it's just crazy. People need to know that you are able to make a decision. Right? He who hesitates is lost. Don't cause a problem for them. Make a decision. Have a good process in place is what it comes down to. And of course, that's going to include, aside from that application, that documentation that we loosely touched on, running a full background check, rental screening, rental history screening, I should say, employment screening, credit screening, everything you need to make sure that all of your leasing or screening criteria are fulfilled in order to then extend an offer to that applicant to become a resident with you. And when you get those applications in, obviously you should know your process and communicate that process so that those folks have an idea of how much time, what's that timeline, what should I expect? So number one, they're not bugging you. Have you made a decision? Does everything look okay? And number two, they know a reasonable amount of time to not get too antsy. Because again, tight market, 2 houses in our zip code. It's tight. And then again, once you do make that decision, it's back to you. Speed is the key. Be prepared to move fast. We anticipate our current family out end of May 31st. I don't want to take more than a couple of days to get that make-ready done. Faster if I can. I've already been out to the property. Looked great. They kept it very, very well. That's what happens when you use best product, best price, and get the best people in there. So what I've got to do, very minimal. They'll clean to get their security deposit back. So there should be very little to touch, and we'll get that make-ready done and move on. fast. Speed is the key. That's for the renter, and that's for the rental owner as you're going through that leasing season right now in the spring. Now, what about the buyers? You need to be prepared to move fast as a buyer as well. Now, this could mean both you buyers out there looking for your personal house. You should be working with a good realtor that is able to instruct you in the process and help you get everything lined up ahead of time, those pre-qualifications that show you can get the financing, etc. But for the investment buyers out there, you have to be very prepared to make a quick offer and close that deal. What does that mean? We're going to head into a quick break. When we come back, we'll walk through, just upper level, we're going to walk through what does that mean. And then I want to get into the question of, well, should I even be buying at all? The market's hot. Prices are up. Maybe I should just wait a year or 2 or 3. Should you? We're going to answer that. Stay tuned.
Warning, listening to the Lifestyles Unlimited Real Estate Investor Radio Show will change your life. We will teach you how to create wealth and passive income so you can be financially free. And now, back to your host.
Welcome back to the show. This is your host, Andy Webb, and today we're talking about speed. In today's market, it's pretty hot out there, whether you are a renter trying to get that next home for lease, or a buyer trying to take down your own personal house, or an investor trying to pick up that next rental property. You need to be able to move pretty quickly. And we talked already earlier in the show about the lease up season right now and picking up that house that you want to rent. And if you're a rental owner, there's a couple things you can be thinking about as part of that process as well. If you missed any part of the earlier show and want to catch that, go to lifestylesunlimited.com, click on the radio tab to catch our past shows. Now, what about the buyer? You got to move fast too. Let me tell you something. I'm a skydiver. I like to jump out of airplanes. For me, speed is the key. It's a blast. When you're falling on your belly, you're going about 120 miles an hour. If you're in a slightly different vertical orientation, standing, sitting, maybe 160, 200 miles an hour, it's fun. But what happens when you go to pull that parachute and no parachute comes out? Do you pause to think? Do you deliberate? No. Your next action better be automatic. Parachute out. Maybe it has come out, but it's a tangled mess above your head. And what often happens, well, you're being flung in circles around that axis, and you're losing altitude critically fast. Do you pause to deliberate? What should what's going on? What should I do next? No. You cut away that main parachute and you deploy the reserve. Now, you can't see me, but I just natively did those 2 motions on my chest. It's something we routinely practice as skydivers. We think about. We have our safety day every spring ahead of the jumping season to be prepared, because we have to go fast in those situations. And that's, for you, the buyer right now, that's true as well. Among other things, you need to be able to get a strong offer in the door first. Whether that deal is on the market or off the market, you need to be able to get a strong offer in there. That means, among other things, knowing your criteria. So for me, the skydiver, when I look above my head and that parachute's doing something funky, as part of our training, we look at a number of pictures, and that shows us different errant configurations of a parachute that's not flying quite right. Okay, well, that tells me this is going on. I should take this action. This tells me that it becomes natural, it becomes automatic. For you, the investor, that's knowing your criteria. What is it that I, as the single-family house buyer, want to take down? What is my box? What does that box look like in terms of square footage, in terms of number of stories, whether or not it has a pool? Age is a very important consideration. The older you go, the more stuff you're going to have to fix up during the renovations. That's perfectly okay. I love those 1950 builds. We make everything new, bring it into the current century. And what kind of rehab do you want to deal with? That's part of your criteria. What's that box look like? You should have that very well defined, just like we have those pictures of those parachute malfunctions defined to where we don't have to think twice before we take action. Okay, that house there, I got a deal, comes across my desk. It does not fit my box. I'm not going to waste any more time thinking about it. That house there does. Okay, dive in a little deeper. And you need to know as well then how to calculate your numbers. So part of your criteria should include things like, what sort of return do I want to see? And we measure returns in different ways. So I may typically, when we go, this is not a no money down, no money in the deal sort of conversation. We're typically putting money into our investments. So I need to know, number one, well, what's my maximum cash out of pocket? What do I want to have in any given property? Let's say single family house. Is it 20,000? Is it 30,000? Is it 40,000? What's my cap? And as a measure of my return, what is my cash on cash return? So the deal has to cash flow. We're collecting cash flow. That's how we become real estate retired. That's how we achieve our financial freedom. So at the end of the day, what's my net cash flow into my pocket? Annualize that, divide that by your money, your cash into that deal. That gives you your cash on cash return. Where does that need to be for you? Is it 5%, 8%, 10%, 20%? Set that criteria so you don't have to think twice. Equity capture. The way we buy, we like to buy those off-market deals that need a lot of work, or a little bit of work, some amount of work to where we're able to get it at a discount, get our contractors in there to renovate the property for us, again, at a discount, to where we have equity capture at the end of the process. So maybe I have, let's just say $20K into the deal, but my equity at the end of the process is $50K. That means I've captured an additional $30K on top. That means I made 150% return on my equity gain. So what does that equity gain return need to be for you if that's a measurement you want to look at? Know how to calculate those. For the type Bs out there, this is a great opportunity. Sit down now, think about this, become educated on how to make those calculations. Get it to where it's second nature, to where you don't have to think about it. He who hesitates is lost. Speed is the key in these situations, so you need to be able to get to those bottom line numbers very, very quickly. Is that the box I want? And is it yielding the returns that I want to see as well? And this sort of ability, it comes two ways. It can come through experience. You do this, you bump your head against the wall a few times, you fine-tune a little bit here and there, you reinvent the wheel, which we strongly discourage, or you get educated to begin with. That's what Lifestyles Unlimited does. We are an education and mentoring group. And I want to tell you, you're going to want to put this on your calendar. Big event that's coming up later in the year, September 3rd and 4th. We have our Wealth and Passive Income Expo, and it's going to be right here. I'm in Dallas-Fort Worth. It's right here in Dallas-Fort Worth this year at the Irving Convention Center at Las Colinas. So right smack dab in the middle of Dallas-Fort Worth, Friday and Saturday, September 3rd and 4th, 2021. You can learn more if you go to wealthandpassiveincomeexpo.com. You can read all about the event. So there are different packages for, maybe you want to become an apartment investor. Well, there's a direction you're going to want to go. Maybe you want to be a single family investor. Well, maybe that's just going in at the general admission level. There's a lot of education, coming back to the education at this Wealth and Passive Income Expo, a lot of breakout sessions, a lot of training done by some of our vendors, property managers, for example. We're talking in part today about getting a house leased earlier in the show. Well, they're going to talk about stuff like that. So if you're not sure how to lease a house, great opportunity. Plus the networking in spades. Last year we had something like 5,000 plus investors at the event. Just a huge networking opportunity. So check that out, wealthandpassiveincomeexpo.com. If you decide to register, I have a promo code for you that's going to give you $97 off of any of those passes or packages that you see out there. And in fact, it makes general admission essentially free. General admin is $97, so hey, $97 off, perfect. Use the promo code ANDY, A-N-D-Y, that's my name, all caps. Promo code is ANDY, all caps, and that will give you that $97. But it does come, going back to moving fast as a buyer, having that proper foundation in terms of education so that you know what is a good opportunity and what is not, so that you type B personalities out there. That's how you and I, as type Bs, that is really how we get around that natural inclination to overthink. We make an automated sort of decision-making process so that we don't have to think. As a skydiver, if I overthink, guess what? I'm not going to be around for very long. You as an investor are not going to be a successful investor unless you can get some good processes in place around deciding on that box, around deciding on that return. And that comes with that education. And of course, then having your team ready to go. Because again, we got to go fast. If you want to sweeten your offer, maybe you shorten that option period. And if you're going to shorten that option period, you need to know who's your inspector. Get them out there. Who's your general contractor? Get them out there. Get them out there on day one of that option period so you can get all the information back that you need to know, yes, this deal still works based on the renovation bid that I've gotten from this contractor, that contractor, that contractor. Haven't decided which one I'm going to use yet, but the numbers work. Yes, the inspection has come back. I see, okay, well, there's this thing I missed, but doesn't blow the deal. So have that team ready to go. And final point of interest for the multifamily buyers out there, thinking about team in particular, having the Lifestyles Unlimited team behind you in this market, in any market, up, down, Dallas, Fort Worth, Houston, San Antonio, Texas, Arizona, Georgia, having that Lifestyles Unlimited team behind you speaks volumes to that selling broker. Leverage our team, leverage our reputation to get that deal as well. Now, when we come back, you have that question lingering in the back of your head. Well, maybe I should just wait to buy a house. Prices are up. What do you do? Hey, if the market's that hot, maybe it is better to wait. Let's address that. Stay tuned.
Welcome back to the Lifestyles Unlimited Real Estate Investor Radio Show. It's time to turn up the volume and fine-tune your passive income plan so you can create the lifestyle you've always wanted.
Welcome back to the show. This is Andy Webb, and on today's show, we're talking about speed being the key. As my mom used to say, he who hesitates is lost. Be ready to go fast. You need to have your ducks in a row, have your documentation together, whether you are trying to rent a property, buy a house for your personal residence, or take down that next investment property. And we could be talking about a single family house, a package of duplexes, an apartment complex. You need to have your documentation together so that you can move fast. Yeah, but Andy, moving fast, I'm a type B guy, moving fast, I don't know. That just doesn't suit me well. And shoot, if the market's that hot, maybe it's better to wait. Should you wait to buy that first investment house or that next investment house? Will prices drop? Great question. Let's think about a couple things in this context. Number one, think about interest rates. Where are they now? For you, the investor, interest rates play into your cash flow. We buy, fix up, renovate, get rented, and then refinance that property into 30-year debt. Cheapest debt you can get, Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac-backed debt. Are those rates going to decline? Or are they going to go up in the mid to long term? What do you think? Experts out there are talking about possible increase. We're pretty low as it is. I don't know that we can go much lower. Nowhere to go but up. So think about those interest rates. Now, typically in the retail market, when rates go up, prices may suffer a little bit. Okay, possibly. But we, the investor, boy, locking in that fixed rate, 30-year, 3%, even sub 3% have seen recently. Interest, that is nothing but a great inflation hedge. So if you think that's coming as well, maybe good to do that now. And then think about as well the bottlenecks that we're seeing out there in terms of logistics and the resulting shortages. I talked last week about the one maintenance item I had to deal with while we were on the road bumping around West Texas in the RV, and that was ordering an oven, a replacement oven for a resident. Thing had gone out after 7 years of his tenancy with me. Happy to accommodate that, of course. Well, almost everything we looked at was on back order because of things like shipping bottlenecks, shortages on parts, manufacturing delays. We're seeing that in almost every industry. And shipping costs are going up. So what are all of those things going to do to your material costs? The material costs of building a new house. Think as well about labor. Our government is subsidizing unemployment at the moment. We're starting to hear stories out there from small business owners that are unable to find workers due to the level of unemployment that's being paid out. People have more incentive to sit on the sidelines than to work. And small businesses are suffering. They're going to have to pay more to bring people to the table to work for them. And then throw on top of that, this was in the Wall Street Journal just a little bit ago, Biden signs order requiring $15 minimum wage for federal contractors. This was about a week and a half or so ago. He signed an executive order requiring that federal contractors pay that $15 an hour minimum wage. It affects hundreds of thousands of people, including, and here's the key point for you and me, cleaning and maintenance workers. These are people that I use in my properties. So there's now competition, governmentally driven competition in the market for some of those workers that we tap into, and that's going to help drive a degree of wage inflation. What is that going to do to the cost of goods sold and materials costs and the cost to build that house? Not to mention, we're starting to hear just those whisperings of inflation in general. So look, we could potentially see an increase in interest rates, which will drive down your cash flow. So you better lock those rates in now. To me, that speaks to go fast. And are you better off waiting to buy that next investment property, that first house? Well, think as well about the inflation. What's it going to do? It's going to push up the cost of new builds. Well, that's going to have a trickle-down impact on existing inventory as well. So again, with inflation, you can expect prices to go up and not down. So are you better off waiting a year or 2 or 3 to get that next investment property or that first investment house, that get into that next passive apartment deal? No, absolutely not. Now do your research out there. You will have to pay attention. I mean, things are changing all the time. But I think with the level of spending we've seen from our government, both administrations now, what is expected to come down the pike, there's a very, very strong chance that we're going to see some level of inflation, hyperinflation. I don't expect anything of that nature. That's just me talking to you, but some degree of inflation, absolutely. And there's no better hedge than real estate for that very thing. I just mentioned we just put a house on the market, rents have gone up $50. I'm getting offers. I just got a text from a realtor asking if I would take 3 months rent in advance, which begs the question for the real rental owners out there. When you get that kind of question, start having a little doubts. Why? What am I going to find on the credit report or the eviction history? Or is this just a competitive offer? Perhaps it is. Maybe you take your rent up a little higher as a result. So speed is the key. And for the type of Bs out there in particular, the way to overcome those hurdles in your head that are going to slow you down, that are going to make you hesitate, that are going to make you overanalyze, it comes down to getting educated so that those decisions, like I as a skydiver with that malfunctioning parachute, don't have to think twice. It's second nature. That there is a great deal that just came across my desk because I know the numbers. That's my box. It meets my square footage. It meets my age requirements. And when I calculate the returns, because I know how to calculate the returns, they're looking good. They're exceeding my minimum in terms of cash on cash return, in terms of return on equity gain, in terms of cash out of pocket. But you got to get educated. And again, here I would direct you to the Wealth and Passive Income Expo to learn more. wealthandpassiveincomeexpo.com. Again, promo code Andy, my name, all caps, ANDY, to get $97 off that. Any pass or package that you want to take part of. Final piece I want to get to today. We talked a little bit last week about what we are knee deep in already, which is the tax appraisal valuation protest, right? Commonly we call that tax protest. So the appraisal districts, they're starting to set our values. If you're in DFW like I am, Dallas County, Collin County, Tarrant counties have all done that. Denton County, I've got some properties in Denton County, still has not done that. We talked a little bit last week about the deadlines to file that protest. I want to repeat those here. It's May 17th for those counties that already got their appraisal notifications out the door to you. Traditionally, it's May 15th. Well, that's a Saturday, so you've got till that following Monday. Or if you're in a county like Denton County that's dragging their feet and hasn't done that yet, you will have 30 days once they issue that notice. For me, hey, that's great. That means I can attack those other counties first. Once Denton gets their stuff together, I'll deal with them later. And as I mentioned last week as well, you can hire a company. If you're too busy to do this on your own, it's hire a company on a contingency basis only, meaning only if they perform and get you a discount will you pay them some percentage of the tax savings normally. But it's easy enough to do yourself. And that's what I want to get to today is fighting those taxes on your own. And I heard recently from somebody that actually works at one of the county appraisal districts here in Dallas-Fort Worth, and a very critical point. I know we all get up in arms and, they took me up 80%, they took me up 40%, they took one of my properties up 100%. But deep breath. He stated it, and I agree 100%. And to go back to a phrase I always heard my mom say, you get more flies with honey than vinegar. If you go in raging, all guns a-blazing, what's going to happen? They're just going to immediately become defensive. You got to think about the workload these appraisers are dealing with right now with valuations where they are. Last year, we saw a record in terms of the number of protests here in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, protests that were filed, tax protests. That's only going to go up. So think about the workload these appraisers are dealing with right now. And on that notion, talking earlier, we said be prepared, have your documents together. This is the time to have good documentation, have it in order. Don't overdo it. And another thing the gentleman we spoke with said is the appraisal valuation is as of January 1, 2021. So when you get out there and start looking at market comparables, it helps to maybe have a conversation with your local appraisal district because they all handle this a little bit differently. He said some districts may take their comparable sales from February 1, 2020 to January 1, 2021. Some may accept sales going well into 2021. I say personally, hey, why not download those? Why not present those if there's a strong argument? But it helps to have that conversation with your local appraisal. Just give them a call, informal conversation. Maybe you can glean that information so you know that you're looking at the right time period. And then as you go through this, market values are up. That is a fact. It will be difficult to argue on that basis. So you need to look at other storylines perhaps. And here I think building a story around the property condition itself is a very, very strong approach. Now, again, think about the workload these appraisers are facing right now. Don't inundate them with 100 pictures of sheetrock cracks. Yes, we know our foundations move here in Texas. 1 or 2 should suffice. Get a couple others. And if you can, ideally you support that deferred maintenance or other repair needs with estimates and bids from contractors. So that's a little bit more on protesting those property taxes. Next week, I will devote a lot more, maybe the entire show, to this topic because it's important, and we will have just about a week and some change to go for a lot of the counties out there for that May 17th deadline. Speed is the key for you if you are in those counties. Hey, I thank you for listening today. If you're a type A or a type B, I'm telling you, get an education so that you can make a quick decision. He who hesitates is lost. You need to know what you're looking for and be able to make that decision quickly. Learn more about our Wealth and Passive Income Expo at wealthandpassiveincomeexpo.com. Again, I thank you for listening. My name is Andy Webb, and remember, it's not the money, it's the lifestyle.
The Lifestyles Unlimited Real Estate Investor Radio Show is for entertainment purposes only. Please consult a professional regarding your personal investment needs. Nothing presented on the Lifestyles Unlimited Real Estate Investor Radio Show constitutes an endorsement, recommendation, offer, or solicitation to buy or sell any product or security.